What is up, Mizzou fans? Welcome back to another video on the Show Me Football YouTube channel. My name is Josh Fan of ShowMeFootball.com, covering your Missouri Tigers. And today, I am Tigers 27-21 victory over Golden Eagles. And we're doing this actually a little bit delayed. So it's actually Sunday night. And so we've had a little bit of time to soak in everything from this game. Spot, they got jumped by Josh Heupel and the Tennessee Volunteers after they beat up on a defenseless Kent State program, which I think is absolutely BS, but it doesn't really matter that much because as long as you win the games, I mean, the rankings will it was a choppy game. It was not a perfect game by any means. And Eli Drinkwitz even said in his post-game press conference, we got tested in this game, and it was the first time we had been tested all season. He wasn't sure how we'd respond, and that was kind of the big step. The big highlight coming out of this game is we got down early, we faced adversity, got punched in the mouth, but we bounced back relatively quickly and ended up leading by halftime. But Brayden, what are your initial thoughts on this game, and also the fact that we got jumped by Tennessee and the people?
Like you kind of mentioned, I'm not really too worried about getting jumped by Tennessee in the polls when Josh Heupel was doing onside kicks up 30-0 in the first quarter. Like Josh Heupel's a piece of shit, runs up the score against inferior opponents for no fucking reason. So, I just like to remind Tennessee fans of whenever Drink iced their kicker at the end of last year. That was one of the sweetest moments of all time because Drink's not the kind of guy to do that. But he made sure to do that against Josh Heupel and then go up to him and say that he's standing on business. And I think Mizzou will be standing on business later this year. But I'm still kind of a Tennessee fan this week because they're playing Oklahoma. And
that's their first big SEC.
As much as I hate Josh Heupel and Tennessee, I want them to beat the shit out of Oklahoma because Oklahoma, like, my hatred for Oklahoma is far superior than my hatred for Tennessee. But that's really besides the point. This game against Boston College was a real test, like Drinkwitz said, like you said, and like I said on the pregame. This game was not going to be that easy. It was probably going to be a lot like the Memphis game last year, and it was because we stopped Boston College's run game. I said that the key matchup in this game was going to be our linebackers versus their running backs, and our linebackers won against their running backs and Castellanos, and we did a pretty good job containing him and forcing him to throw the ball, which is, again, what I said. If we force him to throw the ball, he's going to eventually make mistakes, and that's exactly what happened because he threw those 2 interceptions. The vibes of Faurot Field were not very great after we went down 14-3. I was sitting there. I was pretty worried, but at the same time, I was just talking it out in my head or talking it out loud with my dad. And I'm like, all right, we'll be fine. We've been playing better because even when we were down 14-3, I'm like, we've been playing better than them. That was that was my thought, was that we were playing better than them, but just that fluky, very, very, very fluky touchdown.
We looked better than them, and we were clearly more talented. It was just a couple mistakes, and like so Connor in the group chat was like making fun of the defense while I was watching. I noticed because on that first drive we let BC score on their first offensive drive, and it's like, well, we did get the stop until the refs threw the flag on, I think it was hands to the face by Chris McClellan. And that's just kind of one of those penalties that it's like a backbreaker. But we had gotten the stop prior to that. But really, outside of that and a couple broken plays, I thought the defense was actually pretty good. Now, this is why it's important to have this ramping up of opponents in the schedule. You go from weak competition to slightly better competition to decent competition. Boston College is decent competition, and they punched you in the mouth, like Drink said, but this team responded incredibly well, especially on the defensive side of the ball, because that's what struggled early. Of course, the offense didn't do them any favors very early on as well. And there was that one scary play where Cook nearly threw an interception to someone on the blitz, and it
Oh,
kind of
that
got batted
was,
around in the air.
yeah.
That was scary. But I mean, after that, they really did settle in, and I love Corey Batoon in this defense. That's all I got to say. And
Yeah.
the linebackers completely shut down the run, the defensive line as well. And here's the big thing is a lot of people were complaining, especially very early on, that we weren't getting any pressure on Castellanos. And I think that was by
Definitely.
design. I mean, if you were really watching that game, I think the lack of pass rush was certainly by design because, I mean, a lot of times they were only rushing three, like quite a bit in this game. They only rushed three. It was a lot of 3-man fronts, and a 3-man front isn't necessarily used to get after the quarterback. And Drink did say before the season, I believe he said it, maybe not, but if not, I know other people have kind of talked about it, that this defense would kind of be a blend between what Blake Baker did and what Corey Batoon wants to do, because Corey Batoon knows that there were things this defense did well last year. And I remember when we went up against Tennessee, funny enough, we're talking about them again. But against Tennessee last year, they had this vaunted rushing attack, and they had a 3-headed monster at running back, and Joe Milton could run the ball a little bit. And we played a lot of 3-man fronts against Tennessee,
Yep.
Blake Baker did, and we shut their ass down.
Yeah. Like I said, we wanted to force them to pass. There was a few plays where we're like, yeah, we didn't get any pressure at all. And you're going to have those whenever you're only rushing 3, when you're only rushing 4 against a pretty good ACC team. Probably the second best team in the ACC, if we're being realistic. I think the Boston College could genuinely make a run for the ACC championship game based off of how they handled business against FSU, who, even though they lost to Memphis, like, they're still they're still a very talented team. And Boston College, out of the 3 games that FSU has
lost, well coached.
Yeah. Actually look like they out-talented them, not just a fluky Florida State shot themselves in the foot. Boston College genuinely beat them.
Beat them in the trenches, which it's like usually there's a big recruiting disparity between, Florida State and Boston College. You think, there's no way you should be getting killed in the trenches. Your guys should be way bigger than BC's.
Yeah. Like even in those games,
and they weren't.
Yeah. But no, I'm super excited about Corey Batoon's defense. Like I mentioned, like being down 14-3, you had a little bit of worry, and we really did get punched in the mouth at first. But I mean, the fact that we were able to respond in the face of adversity, being down by that much, and then to be up at halftime was not something that I expected.
Yeah,
I was just going to be happy with being tied. And the fact that we were able to be up 3 was insane. And I think that's really a credit to the culture and the foundation of this team that Drinkwitz has built, because the fact that we were down 14-3 against a ranked opponent and I wasn't that worried is pretty telling of where this Mizzou team is at. And like we've mentioned many times on previous videos, when you play a bad FCS school, and then you play Buffalo, who's not a great FBS school, and then you go straight into playing number 24 ranked Boston College, who could probably make a run, like I mentioned, at the ACC, there's a pretty big talent gap, and you got to readjust yourself to playing somebody that is significantly better than what you were dealing with beforehand. So I'm fine with getting punched in the mouth on that first drive when we did have them stopped. And then I think my biggest takeaway and my biggest issue about this team now is Toriano Pride. He had a very, very, very bad game. Specifically on that first drive, whenever it was like 4th and 4, and they ran a corner route into the back corner of the end zone, and Castellanos just lobbed it. It was such a slow pass, and Pride was in perfect position to make a play on the ball and possibly even intercept it, and he just didn't do anything, which I mean, he
So,
couldn't.
okay.
He didn't even get his hand on the ball, and the Boston College receiver caught it, and it was a touchdown. And I'm like, "What the hell are you doing?" And then he had a PI later, and
That one was
he was
bad.
kind.
Okay, but the PI though,
I didn't
that
see
was
it
not
on a broadcast or
PI.
anything. I just saw it
It
live in
was really
person.
bad. It was really bad. It should not have been
Um,
called. It was very
and
bad. It should not have been called.
he was kind of responsible for the second broken play, and like he just did not have a good game whatsoever. There are multiple points where I'm just like, you're not cutting it. So I hope that he can find his rhythm back against Vandy next week. But I he was the biggest weak. He was the weakest link in the defense. But besides him, this defense looked fantastic again, and it really felt like it was a game that ended 27-14 because of that fluky touchdown, and even that last touchdown where it was a busted coverage as well. I'm just like, I don't
Yeah.
I don't really care that much because like all three of those drives, one very minute thing goes different and they don't have any points.
Yeah, so I have a lot to say. First of all, I can agree that Toriano Pride was probably the weakest link on the defense on Saturday. The rest didn't do him any favors, and the rest didn't do us any favors at all, really. And we'll talk about them, I'm sure, because they were bad. The secondary as a whole was not great, and it was because of those, of course, the busted coverage plays. But here's the important part about that. So Gabe mentioned this on his show after the game. So if you take the play where Castellanos fumbled the snap, right, and picked it back up, and they somehow got a touchdown off of it, on that play, what ended up happening, because Gabe could see it up from the press box, it was Burks and Charleston, and both of them, once they saw the ball was fumbled, they just stopped covering their guy because they saw the fumble and they got excited. They're like, "Oh, fumbled
Mm-hmm.
ball." That's easily correctable. As if it's not like they got burnt by the Boston College wide receiver that they were covering. It's just that they got excited when they saw the fumble. It's early in the season. You see a potential turnover and it's a mental lapse, but that can easily be fixed by the coaches. So I'm not too worried about that at all. Especially after hearing Gabe break it down too. It's like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then one more time, because I was talking about it before you were adding in, but the 3-man rush and just the run defense. I mean, the goal was obviously to have Castellanos sit back and try to throw Boston College into a victory. And of course, that didn't happen. Corey Batum was comfortable with him doing that because he did end up throwing 2 interceptions, and they were bad interceptions too. Quite frankly, not even close. And so that was a winning game plan. And from the second quarter on, after we took the lead, I mean, we really controlled this game. We dominated this game, and the defense really dominated the game in the second half. Boston College wasn't getting anything until they scored late to make it interesting, and I really think we kind of played lax too, which is why that happened. But again, it was kind of like Memphis last year, and we compared this to the Memphis game a lot in the preview, where you never really thought Mizzou was going to lose, even though the score was close. And they definitely made it more interesting at the end. And that's just kind of one of those things you got to clean up. Because I said to you right after the game, this should have been a 34-14 victory. I mean, the offense had plenty of chances to punch it in, or not punch it in, but put the Boston College Golden Eagles away. Had plenty of opportunities to do so, and they did. And then they really closed the playbook, I thought, on the last couple of drives. And then, of course, the defense or allowed the one busted coverage touchdown that made it interesting late. And then he was like, all right, we have to actually draw something up here to get a first down. And they got it rather easily. Is that was a point in the game, a point in this season that we haven't seen yet, where Mizzou truly had that is something that Brady Cook has struggled with. You could point to LSU last year, you could point to Georgia last year, where we needed something late. It was good in this game. Now, of course, Brady Cook's going to be a lot of the conversation too as we get into the offense. And I'll just say this now. Brady Cook, at this point, I feel like there's a very clear ceiling on what he is. And that is a guy that you can win games with, but he's mostly elevated by the talent around him. He's not going to be someone that consistently throws for three. I'm not saying he can't do it, but we've never seen him do it on a consistent basis. That's just not who he is. He's going to miss on some throws. He's not super accurate with the deep ball, but we do need to see him hit more of them. And that's what I will say, and I will be completely honest about. If Mizzou wants to make a run at the college football playoff and win a game or two, Brady Cook has to be better. It's not that he was bad. Not all of it was him, but he has to simply be better for us to go to the heights that we want to go this year. And I don't think I'm a Brady Cook hater for saying that. And I don't think I'm a Brady Cook hater for saying that there's a clear cap on what he can do, because we've seen him be better than he was before. And the effort today, or not today, the game was yesterday, but the effort in that game is probably not a winning effort against a slightly better opponent. Like take Auburn, for example, who's a team that's in the SEC we're going to play in a few weeks, who doesn't
I
look
don't know
great,
if Auburn's
but the
better than
effort,
Boston College.
well, that's probably true. But you kind of get what I'm saying, though. Like the point being that like you're going to play better teams as we get more into the season. And today's performance, I keep saying today, the game was yesterday, but yesterday's performance is not going to beat those teams, even though it beat Boston College.
No, like you said, going back a little bit earlier into what you were talking about, I really think that the score is not a reflection of the actual game. But if we wanted to maintain our number 6 spot in the polls and not get jumped by Tennessee, or we wanted to climb up in the polls a little bit more, which I don't really think would have been possible with how all the other games went, you had to come out of the gate.
Oh, hold on. Let me cut you off real quick, though. And I think this is the problem with the people who vote on this stuff, such as the AP poll. And I don't want to make it seem like I'm complaining about the AP poll, because I quite frankly don't care about it at this point in the season. But if someone watched this game and they said, I'm knocking Mizzou down a peg because the offense still gives me some concerns and some questions, I totally understand it. I get that perspective. I get that argument. But if you're just someone that watched this game and saw, oh man, Missouri only beat Boston College 27-21. Yeah, we got to knock them down a spot. Then that's just uneducated. Like that is someone who didn't watch the game. They don't know what's going on. They're not aware of what's happening around college football. This game was under complete Missouri control for the entire second half until a late score from Boston College made it slightly interesting. And Mizzou actually had to work to get a first down and close the game out. But I mean, Mizzou mostly dominated this game.
Yeah, I mean, first quarter wasn't great, but like if we wanted to maintain that spot, we had to come out of the gate strong and not go down 14-3 immediately. Because that, I think, is at that moment, people are just like, okay, we're probably going to have to knock him down a peg, which again, like you mentioned, I don't really care, but, it is, it's a sign that this team can, perform in the face of adversity. And, like you mentioned, I think in the fourth quarter specifically, we only scored 2 touchdowns, which I think is a bit of an issue. And I'm, again, a little bit concerned about the offense, but again, not too much, because whenever we needed to, we did. Like whenever we absolutely had to, when our backs were against the wall, we came out and we showed up. And we're treating Brayden like a Ferrari this year. We're taking it out for 5 to 10 minutes, driving it around the block real quick, saying, all right, it still works, engine's still running, everything's good, and then putting it back in the shop for when you need it. Because, I know that Brayden had like 117 yards on 6 catches and he had the touchdown, but it still didn't feel like we were using him as much as we could or as much as we wanted to. And I think we're going to see a lot more of Luther Brayden, and we're going to see a lot of 150 plus 200-yard games from him this year, because he's completely capable of doing that. He just made light work of Boston College. There were so many plays. I mean, he was playing on the playground yesterday with a few of his plays. So I think that we're just trying to keep him under wraps. Like he went out of that Buffalo game last week because he didn't feel great. In this Boston College game, we just kind of used him very sparingly. But when we did use him, he was so damn effective. And like you mentioned, once the fourth quarter started, we just got super conservative.
Yeah.
Like, we were in the sole mindset of showing up and playing
Winning and
really
getting
quick
out.
and taking our ball and going home. Like, that was our mindset the entire fourth quarter, was we want to take our ball and we want to go home because we feel like we've won. And it worked, and Boston College made it a little bit interesting, and our play calling got super vanilla, super quick, and we didn't really show that much. We didn't really show that much this entire game. There's a few new wrinkles in the offense that we saw, but we're still not using the middle of the field at all, which I feel like is something that Kirby Moore did really effectively last year. And I don't know why we're really not going to the middle of the field that much. But we didn't show that much in the fourth quarter, and that's what made the score a little bit closer. But when we needed to, when we absolutely had to, this offense performed, and that's why I'm not too worried. And it's good that we had this Boston College test. Vandy, even though they lost to Georgia State and they look like the same old Vandy, is still going to be a bit of a challenge next week. And then you have the A&M game 2 weeks after that. But I'm glad that we have 3 weeks to get ready for that A&M game, to work out the wrinkles, to make sure everything is solid going into that A&M game, and then the Auburn game, and then the Bama game after that. I know UMass is in there somewhere. But I'm not as concerned about Brady Cook and the offense as you are, because there's a few plays where Mookie Cooper had a drop. I think Theo Weiss had a drop, and then Brady overshot, I think it was Brayden, by literally like fingertips.
Yeah.
And that's something that he struggled with early in the season last year, and I think that he eventually will get into making those throws, because he did make a few deep shots last year. So I'm not too worried about Brady Cook. He still had a great stat line. So I'm still pretty confident in him. I know that you're probably a little bit less confident in him, but I feel like this offense is still perfectly fine. They're not worrying about anything, but they know that we have stuff to improve on, and Drinkwitz is going to hold them accountable because he's a damn good coach like that. And we're going to see them improve. We're going to see them get better, and they've got better progressively throughout the weeks, I think.
I just think with Brady Cook, we seem to have this conversation every other game about what his ceiling is. And I just think we've had the conversation so many times now that I think we already have the answer. There is a cap on what Brady Cook can do. And I'm not even saying he was bad against Boston College, but there was some throws missed, and there was some moments where you thought, well, what the heck is going on? Like that almost picked off thing where blitz came right in Brady Cook's face and he nearly got picked off on the blitz. Just is. And as long as he limits the turnover margin, then we're still going to have a great chance to win every single game on the schedule. So I'm not even like concerned about the offense. Like I think they will get it figured out. And like you said, this is a great game to kind of iron out the wrinkles, and they're still doing that, which is why I appreciate the fact that it's been a steady ramp up in competition. And I know people hate when you play cupcakes early in the season and stuff like that, but I just think that this team and the way it's built, that's what they need.
Yeah.
Because if we had come out in early in the year, I don't think we would have won. And that's just me being honest. Like if we had to come out and play,
if we played Boston College before they played FSU, I don't think that we
might have gotten caught.
I think that we get caught and we might lose that game 100%. If we played them when FSU did, I think we 100% could have lost that game.
Yeah, I agree. And so that's why it's nice to have this part of the schedule. But I think the offense will get it figured out. I really like what you said about Luther Burden, comparing him to like a Ferrari, where it's like you don't want to put a bunch of miles on it because it's like your baby. That's kind of like Luther Burden and at the line of scrimmage or a few yards out and just letting him go to work after the catch, which is what he does best. But like we haven't opened up any elaborate concepts yet. Also, the running game was fantastic. Nate Noel had 22
Yeah.
carries for 121 yards. Marcus Carroll also added another 57 yards on 12 carries. They're both right around 5 yards a carry. And I mean, the offensive line, after struggling, and there's still some penalty issues and things of that nature, but I mean, they absolutely rogue grade in the run game. And that's something you have to give them credit for, because this run game looks really good. And it's going to be something for this team where if they can get a big lead in some of these games, that they can just hand the ball off for the rest of the game and just, close the playbook and save a lot of their good stuff for better opponents. And Nate Noel probably could have another 100 yards this year on his total already if he'd stop slipping all over.
Yeah. I think honestly my biggest complaint with the offense is that Kirby Moore didn't call enough running plays, especially when we were down 14-3. We kept trying to pass the ball, and it got a little bit infuriating because our offensive line was just looking at Boston College's entire defense and saying, "We're better than you, and there is nothing you can do about it." That's what the offensive line did all game long, and we weren't running the ball as much as I would have liked us to, because that is what was working, especially when we were down that much. And we wanted to pass our way out of that hole, which didn't make too much sense, but it ended up working. We ended up being fine. But yeah, this running game is so damn good. Our downfield blocking, everything that we do, really just puts a smile to my face, seeing those stretch runs, seeing those counters, those halfback powers that we do, just those outside runs in between the B or C gap are just, they're works of art, and Kirby Moore has drawn those plays up so beautifully. I just wish that we did it at least a little bit more, because they just work. And if we're going up against teams with worse offensive lines, we know, or with worse defensive lines, we know that we can just run the ball nonstop and it should work.
Yeah, and I mean, they interviewed Nate Noah after the game. I know he did a sideline interview after the game, and then he had a post-game press conference. I think he repeated the same thing of both of them, but he was like talking about how his reaction was, "Oh my!" every single time he got a handoff, because of how wide open the holes were in the running game, and it's something that he's never really seen before with any offensive line that he's played with. And so when you hear that coming from your running back, I think that speaks to kind of what Drinkwitz has built. That's the thing, and that's why we were so excited about the offensive line this year, is because there's just so much talent on it, and you're seeing what that talent is doing, and how, when Drink's first couple years, it's like, man, offensive line is overpowered in this game. Like, we just don't have enough, or these guys look bigger than us on the other side of the ball. We are now that team that goes into these games and the opponent's saying, man, Missouri's offensive line is just completely overmatching our D line. Like, we can't get any pass rush on them. We can't penetrate the run at all. Like it, and it's really nice. It's nice being on this side of things.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, whenever we can just go out there, and our big uglies are bigger and stronger and better than the other teams. It's just a fantastic feeling to have, knowing that the other team just can't do anything about it.
Absolutely. And something I wanted to talk about too. So we took the lead before halftime, and that was great. I wasn't even expecting that. You kind of touched on it earlier. But we have to give credit to Craig the leg, because
Oh yeah, he was fantastic.
he was perfect. He was perfect on PATs, and he had a 56-yard field goal. And most people after the game were saying that it looks like it would have been good from 65.
Yeah,
And
I mean, I've never seen a 56-yarder look that clear. Like, it was scraping the top of the uprights.
yeah, it was a really nice kick. I don't think we'll miss Harrison Beebis too much. And I still think there will be moments this year where Craig is going to miss a few of those, and he's going to have to refine the accuracy. But to know that you can trot your guy out there from 60 yards, and there's a pretty good chance he makes it, that's just not something that a lot of programs can say about their kicker.
Yeah. No, Drinkwitz has done a fantastic job recruiting some of the best kickers in the country. I think there was
Yep.
something else I was going to mention, but I can't think of
Probably
it
the
right now.
refs, because we didn't get
Oh
to them
yeah,
yet.
no. That's what I
Because
was
they
going
were
to
really
mention. You
bad.
said Blake, so I thought of Blake Baker. So let's just laugh for a second at Blake Baker for allowing 33 points to South Carolina.
Yeah, he got bailed out at the end, but his defense does not look good. I put out a tweet earlier on the Show Me Football account, and I called Blake Baker. It's like the girl you thought you were going to marry dumping you on wedding day for her abusive ex, the abusive ex being LSU since he was fired from there once.
Yeah.
And then you just like stumble into the girl of your dreams, which is Corey Batoon in this scenario.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what's happened because we were so upset and so mad whenever Blake Baker left. And it's
Oh yeah,
just
because he
like,
sent
well,
out the tweet and he's like, "I'm not leaving." He tweeted out the Wolf of Wall Street gif, and that's why I kind of compare it to like getting dumped after your wedding day because you thought, "Oh, like Blake Baker's not going anywhere." Oh,
yeah,
he's
he's
gone,
committed to us. Yay. And then just dips.
gone for the
Yeah.
abusive ex that doesn't
No.
treat him as
And
well.
I mean, we were definitely salty at the time, and people might still call us salty now, but I mean, those LSU fans, they were ripping us for that. I mean, that was probably the most watched podcast episode that we had was
Yeah, it's the
LSU
most.
fans just ripping into us that game or for that. But no, I mean, it's just a very gratifying feeling knowing that he has gone down there with Brian Kelly, and I can't imagine going from working under Eli Drinkwitz to Brian Kelly. Like, and this isn't me thinking
Well,
like Eli
and
Drinkwitz is some god. It's like I cannot imagine working for Brian Kelly and just how miserable that has to be because like you said, there, like if Blake Baker just immediately left and he went to some group of 5 school and became the head like if he went and became the Tulane head coach after Willie Fritz left for Houston. If he did that, I wouldn't have been mad. I would have said good for Blake. Hope you do well.
nah.
But the fact that he left for another defensive coordinator job after he signed an extension here and was just like, I'm not fucking leaving, like, yeah, tweets out the Wolf of Wall Street video late in the cycle, then he leaves. And like, no, sorry, you're a piece of shit.
And also,
There's a
Brayden
way to leave and
takes
there's
our
a way not
defensive
to
line
leave.
coach with him.
Huh? Yeah, and then you poach some of the other defensive staff.
Takes our defensive line coach. Blake Baker at LSU, I feel like is just, and most LSU fans in that podcast you were talking about where we reacted to it, they were like, "Oh, well, we have more talent here," and blah blah blah. And I'm like, but you don't, like, your defense was a disaster, and I guess a lot of them figured,
Like,
they have the recruits
Errol
for it.
Perkins. What else? Like that's
Blake Baker will come in. Yeah, like Blake Baker will come in and fix it because they've gotten a bunch of recruits or whatever. But I just thought when you looked at what Mizzou returned and then what they did in the portal, like this, and it was a comfortable situation for Blake Baker, and he knew what he had here. And our schedule is basically tailor made for 10 wins this year. And it's like you leave that. Blake Baker could have returned for one more year at Mizzou and cruise to a head coaching job next year if he chose. Yeah. Now I don't know if he gets a head coaching job. I mean, and here's the thing about working for Brian Kelly. Drinkwitz, there's a lot of humility in Drinkwitz. He doesn't throw his assistants under the bus and stuff like that. If it gets bad enough in LSU, Brian Kelly will 100% throw Blake Baker under the bus.
100%.
And that's the issue with going to work for Brian Kelly. And I don't get it. I mean, I really don't get it.
I don't know, Baker, but I mean, we stumbled into Corey Batoon because of it, and I think that he was to credit for South Alabama's fantastic defense last year. I mean, so was South Alabama's head coach because he became the defensive coordinator at Bama, and Bama's defense has been pretty solid. But no, Corey Batoon has been fantastic. I don't know if the offense keeps performing the way that it has been. I don't know if Kirby Moore leaves. And I don't really know what opportunities he would like to take because the Boise State job isn't available. And I mean, there's not really too much else that I think that he'd be too interested in with the state of Group of 5 conferences with the new Pac-12, which we talked about on the pregame.
Yeah.
like with the state of college football and everything, I don't know if Kirby Moore would want to leave. Kind of the same thing for Corey Batoon, but because he's just in year one. So I think that there's a pretty solid possibility
I
that
also feel like,
with the amount of
yeah,
turnover that we have next year, that those guys stay. But I mean, we're not even talking about the Boston College game at this point. But
I know.
yeah, I'm excited for the future of the season, for the future of this program. It really sucks that I'm only going to 3 more home games for the rest of the year because I'm not going to the Vandy game, but I'm it's been a solid start to the year, and I'm really excited. And I still have the confidence that I had that built up from the end of last year about the possibility of this season. And Mizzou has not let me down yet.
Not yet. Important to
Yeah.
throw the yet in there. But
Mhm.
one more thing I'll say about the Boston College game, and then there's another thing I want to talk about before we go. So, in college football, over the years, I've matured as a fan, and I've learned one thing is that the only thing that matters is winning. It doesn't matter about style points. Yeah, style points could, get you some points in the
It
AP poll
really
or
doesn't
whatever.
matter in Georgia, and you hand all your players Ferraris.
Yeah, and then they go and crash them. But the only
And
thing
then
that
they
matters
almost
is
moved to
winning.
Kentucky.
Yeah, they did not look great. But the only thing that matters is winning. Mizzou won. It would have been nice if we won like 34-14, and yeah, it would have been a little bit more of a comfortable win, but you won. And that's literally all that matters. You survive to the next week and you win. And Drinkwitz just preaches going 1-0 each week. And I think that's something that's really helped the mentality of this team. And they responded well in this game. And that's something you can take away from it and build off of is, yeah, there were some mistakes here and there, but you responded to adversity and you beat another ranked opponent. Also, another ranked win under Drinkwitz's belt, which is always nice. People will argue whether or not BC should be ranked, but doesn't
I
really
think that they'll
matter.
be
All that
ranked by
matters is
the
you
end of
beat
the
them when
year.
there's the number next to their name.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's
Here's what
that's a
I'm going
good
to say about
point.
Boston College. I do want to say one last thing about Boston College, just in general. They are going to be a top 3 I think the minimum they'll be a top 4. I think top 3, maybe the second best team in the ACC behind Miami, and they'll play in the ACC championship game. I think that there's a genuine possibility that that happens because they are an extremely well coached team under Bill O'Brien. And I talked about it on the pregame. Like, it is a perfect situation for Bill O'Brien to just relax and build up and be a damn good football coach because he is one. I think that Thomas Castellanos is a fantastic quarterback, and he made some really damn good throws and some really damn good plays that you can't do anything about. Like, it doesn't matter how good your defense is. He just is going to outplay everybody with a few of the things that he did on the field Saturday. And Boston College's defense did a perfectly fine job. They're going to be able to win a lot of games in the ACC, and I definitely think that they are going to be a ranked team by the end of this year. And that's going to look good on Mizzou's resume, is having this
For
win.
sure. For sure.
I think that it's look, whenever we're in December, this win is going to mean something, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think they have a very good chance to be ranked by the end of the year, and the ACC is wide open, so they certainly have the opportunity. I think that's all I got to say about the Boston College game. So, unless you had anything else to say, Brayden, I wanted to talk about the Florida job real quick, since it's going to be a hot button
Yeah.
topic here for probably the rest of the year. But On3, the recruiting network, covers college football. They put out a tweet and a report saying that I guess the Florida's version of the board of curators or the board of trustees is getting together to have an emergency discussion or whatever about Billy Napier's future with the Florida Gators. And rumors are swirling that Florida is gathering the buyout to fire Billy Napier. And obviously, this would be kind of uh, not surprising because Billy Napier's been performing badly there. He was already on the hot seat to begin the year, but I think a lot of us would be surprised if it happened like now. No one was expecting him to get fired. Drinkwitz's name has already popped up everywhere as a candidate for the Florida job, as well. Those are kind of the top 3 names we've heard so far. So, Brayden, I'll after Eli Drinkwitz.
I'm not too worried about Florida going after. Oh, okay. I'm not worried about him leaving for Florida at all. Like, I'm not concerned about that because Florida is an absolute fucking mess. And I would not want to touch that job with a 10-foot pole. What does Drinkwitz gain from going to Gainesville over staying in Columbia?
So
there's like, yes, they had the national championship with Urban. Steve Spurrier had them be a really good team before that. But I mean, they don't have that much. They're not a blue blood. Like, they're not a historical enough college football team to be considered a blue blood, I think, and to be like considered as like this extremely prestigious job. And I don't think that Drinkwitz is going to jump the gun for that. And I don't think that Florida really has the money to outbid us, especially when the board of curators will bend the knee and do whatever the hell Drinkwitz wants.
Yeah. Okay. So here's what I'll say about the Florida job. Obviously, with the landscape changing over the past few years in NIL, Missouri backing Drinkwitz. I mean, and Drinkwitz basically runs the athletic department. A lot of those reasons can breathe a little bit when it comes to Eli Drinkwitz, because I think Drinkwitz has really made himself at home here. I think he's really planted his roots in St. Louis and Kansas City and those areas, and then Columbia, of course. And I just think he has something. Really think he can and maybe will. There's simply no reason as far as football to leave for Florida, because, as you said, it's kind of a mess there right now, and it would be like their third. You can get fired for going 7-5 there, where it's like here you can go 8-4 and the very least. And it's just Drinkwitz has something special going on here, man. And there is an argument to be had about, Luther Burden and Brady Cook leave after this year, and you're going to have to kind of retool a little bit. But it's going to be really hard too if Mizzou makes the college football playoff, because a lot of coaches, or a lot of teams, I should say, they want to have their coach in place before signing day, and you want to have your coach before the end of the national championship. And it'd be kind of hard for Florida to do that if Drinkwitz is coaching a team in the playoff. And I was talking to Connor about this the other day, and he thinks that Drinkwitz would leave a playoff team to take the Florida job. And I just thought, no way. You're not.
God, no.
You're not. Yeah, you're not leaving a playoff team to take the Florida job. That's ridiculous.
Did he say that, like, Drinkwitz before the playoffs started?
Like we make the playoff and he leaves.
Never happen. Never.
Yeah, I just felt like calling him out a little bit, because I just think
for Georgia to do that.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's ridiculous.
Playoff team to go anywhere. Like I said, Drinkwitz would not leave for Georgia to do that. If you were in the playoffs, you're not leaving your school, like, until the playoffs are over. Like, nobody's doing that. Nobody's entering the portal before them. Nope. You don't. That doesn't.
Yeah.
happen.
So that unless they don't play. Maybe there's a player that doesn't play that enters the portal before, or something like that.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know.
No starters.
You get what I'm saying, though. Portal. I mean, there might be a guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it makes no sense from that regard. Hold on, I got a few more things to say, and then I'll hand it back to you. Yeah, I just don't think Florida in this current landscape is the job that you leave for. I'm not saying
No.
Drink's going to be here forever. I'm not saying there's a job that Drinkwitz would job. I mean, I could certainly see that happening. But I just don't think Florida is the job that you leave for. And I also don't think the search is going to make it to Drinkwitz. I think Florida has a few other guys in mind. And I think even if they say no, there's the possibility that Urban Meyer returns. I do think that's something that we're going to hear about that's going to be possible. I just don't think this is the job that Drink leaves for. I will say, though, because some people, they want to ignore the recruiting aspect. And I do think Florida, one thing that does make them very attractive and why some coaches will at least have to consider it, maybe a Kiffin or even a Drink, is because you can recruit a top
Kiffin's not leaving
15
for
class without
Florida
even
either.
getting on a plane and leaving the state of Florida. Yeah, no, I don't think he will. I think he has a pretty good thing going at Ole Miss. I'm just throwing it out there that one reason why you'll hear of coaches considering this job is because you can recruit a top 15 class without even leaving the state. And that's a really big advantage. But I'll hand it back to you.
Like you said earlier, like Drinkwitz has made his bed in Columbia, and he has his he's locked down Missouri as the state. And we have a pipeline in Texas as well. We get a bunch of recruits from there. So he has his relationships here. He has connections. And Florida is just not that enticing of a job, in my opinion. It would honestly, and I mean, this is what I said about Blake Baker going to LSU. It's a lateral move. It's a lateral move for Drinkwitz. Sure, the recruiting is better, but the situation in general is not. Florida obviously has its benefits, but it also has a lot of negatives and a lot of weight attached to it as well.
It's volatile, and it's
yeah. And you kind of cut out for me because my connection's been bad. But I don't know if you said this, but a job that I could possibly see Drinkwitz leaving for is Michigan or Ohio State if Ohio State decides to ever move on from Ryan Day because he can't get over the hump. And Michigan under the I don't even know his name, the guy that took over for Harbaugh.
Sharon Moore.
Yeah, I don't think that he's going to last very long with the way that Michigan's performed this year. I don't know. That just felt like a very lazy promotion, and I don't think that he's going to be built to maintain what Michigan had under Harbaugh. So I could see Michigan really going after and making a play at Drake.
Hold on, I know this is I had real quick. I think maybe the reason they went the direction of Sharon Moore is because they didn't think they could hire the coach they wanted to with any incoming sanctions that Harbaugh was about to leave behind. So Sharon Moore was a guy to take the potential bullet.
Yeah.
And
that's very true.
I think that's why they did that.
That's 100% true. So once those sanctions are out of the way, once the recruiting restrictions or whatever the hell the NCAA decides they want to do with Michigan, because they just have a hate boner for them, that's a job that I could see Drinkwitz possibly enticing. But I wouldn't want to go coach Big Ten football. That sounds terrible. When
if Drinkwitz wants to be his own offensive coordinator, if Drinkwitz wants to be his own offensive coordinator again, that's the conference to do it.
Yeah, that's the perfect conference for Drink to go to if we're talking about 2022 Drink. But yeah, no, I'm not worried about Drink leaving for anywhere besides maybe Michigan, Ohio State. Georgia's not going to be a job that opens up anytime soon. I think DeBoer is going to be in Alabama forever now. Auburn is one that maybe just because of he worked there before under Malzahn, and that could be something that he wants to go back to, and he has connections there. But outside of that, I really don't see any job that he'd want to leave for, because he's made his bed here. He has his roots, and I think that he wants to build this program to something that Pinkel couldn't even do.
I also think, assuming the Drink makes the playoff this year, we win 10 games, because I guess we could win 10 games and technically still miss the playoff. But if Drink reaches 10 wins, as soon as that happens, the board of curators will have another fat contract on his desk that probably will pay him more than Florida, if we're being completely honest.
Yeah,
because
I think
Billy Napier right now. Yeah, I was about to say that. I mean, Billy Napier right now is making $7 million a year. I think Drink is making $9 or.
Yeah. Well,
10.
I know one school that's not going to be worrying about their coach leaving.
Who, Kansas?
Yes.
I don't know.
One last shout out for Barry Odom, because we haven't mentioned him today. Truest of true sons. I'm glad that he's not coaching the Tigers anymore, and I'm glad that we have Drinkwitz now. But good for Barry Odom. That
was a big win for them,
and it probably felt a little bit more sweet for him to beat Kansas as a true son, as a Mizzou alum, as a Mizzou former head coach. I bet that felt a little sweet for him, and I hope he basks in the glory of beating Kansas with UNLV, because it was fantastic.
Well, Brayden, I think the funniest outcome actually would be Lance Leipold goes to Florida, and then we get to laugh at Kansas.
That would be really funny. You're right.
So, who knows? Maybe he does leave. But I think that's a good stopping point for this episode. Mizzou beats Boston College. They take on Vandy next week. See you guys on the other side of that one. But Brayden, anything you want to plug before we sign off for good?
Show me movies if anybody's still listening to this. If you want to listen to me talk more, I have some videos over there. Haven't uploaded in a bit because there really hasn't been too many movies to come out. But yeah, that's all I got.
Sure. Terrifier 3 is right around the corner. I'll be posting for that. But there you guys have it. It'll be down in the description. As always, you can find my work on showmefootball.com and all that other good stuff. If you're a Chiefs fan, you can also stick around for that. There'll be plenty of Chiefs content here coming up. But with all that being said, make sure you like, share, and subscribe so more Mizzou fans can find this. And make sure you check out all my other work. We'll see you all in the next one. MIZ.
ZOU.